Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last session of today. I think you had a fantastic long day. I'm very happy now to bring, if you want, the last piece of the cake. My name is Michele Bernasconi. I'm a lawyer in Zurich. I do a lot of sports law, and I'm also a CAS arbitrator. I know several of the people attending this session, so I'm very, very happy to be here with you. But even happier I am to discuss this matter of player agents, the past and the future, with three fantastic guests. And may I introduce the first? The first is Jeremy. No need to introduction. Actually, former player, Cameroon national team, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Newcastle. So a lot of fantastic teams, a lot of fantastic matches played, even a gold medal, if I remember correctly. And so also an Olympian. Not many of us can say that to be the case. Our second guest is Tilian Petrov, another fantastic former player. He played with Aston Villa, Celtic, CSKA, and of course many matches with the Bulgarian national team. He's co-founder of this player for player interesting adventure. I use this word, and so also a lot of experience. Thank you, Stelian, to you as well to be here. And then last, but obviously not least, James Kitching, the FIFA Director of Football Regulatory, an Italo-Australian friend, also a former player, but at an amateur level, so not as good as the others. But while he was doing amateur play, he already started to study law and look after sports law. And this is what brought him where he is at FIFA, dealing with a lot of new regulations, new needs. And therefore, I start with you, James. Of course, you are the best person to ask, where do we stand with these player agents? In 2008, we had FIFA agents regulations, very strict, very detailed. Then 2015, the big deregulation, agents become intermediaries, but without specific rules. Where do we stand now?
Well, first, grazie Michele. It's a pleasure, and thank you to the Alumni Association for the invitation, and in particular to Gareth Farrelly for the invitation and the chat. And of course, it's a pleasure to be on the stage with two very accomplished former footballers. Michele, you are very kind when you describe me as an amateur player. You perhaps didn't mention the level of the amateur league which I played at, which is probably a good thing, because I have absolutely no football skill compared to the two colleagues here. Where we're at with agents is a good question, and it's a question which comes up quite often. As you correctly said, FIFA previously had football agent regulations which were governing all aspects of the player and agent relationship. And in 2015, FIFA decided to deregulate, or at least deregulate from a FIFA perspective, the industry itself, and introduce the regulations on working with intermediaries. It's not any shame to say this. It's been said publicly by several of my colleagues in FIFA and myself. But on reflection, we made a mistake in deregulating the industry at that time and removing the FIFA control over the football agent industry. And as such, when Gianni Infantino came in as the new president in 2016, one of the core elements was, of course, of his platform was to have a look at and modernize the football transfer system. And that remains part of the FIFA Vision 2020 to 2023, which was launched last year, and modernizing the football regulatory framework with the transfer system as a fundamental part of that is the first goal of that vision. So within that framework, obviously, there are many different aspects of the transfer system that have been modernized and adapted over the past few years, as you mentioned. And one of those is agents. So from one of the very first meetings of the Task Force Transfer System, agents were identified as a topic that needed further exploration. And subsequently, a process commenced where we first spoke with agents, then spoke with our professional game stakeholders who are the clients of agents. Our council adopted some principles in the end of 2019, and subsequently we opened a second and third consultation process to develop those principles into regulations. So a long answer to your very short question is where we are right now. That third consultation process is slowly coming to an end. We shared our regulations with approximately 23 stakeholder organizations, including agent organizations, in November of last year. And we've collated all of the feedback from all of the organizations that took part in that feedback, that consultation process. We've gone back to many of those organizations that provided feedback to ask them, some context to the feedback they provided, and some real life examples that were given to us, which we hadn't considered, etc., etc. And right now the regulations are in the final stages of drafting before we then go through the formal FIFA bureaucratic process, which involves approvals by the task force transfer system, the stakeholders committee, and ultimately the FIFA Council. So as we stated about 3 weeks ago at our football law annual review, our intention is for the regulations to be adopted at some stage in 2021. And the current timeline is that as of the 1st of July 2022, so approximately more or less 1 year from now, but as from that major transfer window, which affects most of our big associations, there will be an obligation for any party that participates in a transfer or a transaction that uses a third party, whether it's an intermediary or whatever the name ends up being, that person or that person has to be licensed by FIFA. So in that respect, 1st of July 2022 is the working date, but obviously we need to bring the regulations to the council before that date, significantly before that date, because those individuals that want to obtain a license need to obviously apply for a license, go through the process, and then make the necessary amendments to the way they work potentially, or study for the exam, all those types of things that come into that particular phase of the journey. So long answer, short question, I'm sorry, but
No,
that's
perfect.
where we're at more or less.
Perfect, because you're concluding saying that one needs, therefore, to get a license. I heard even the word exam. So this brings me to the question to Stilian. So Stilian, is in your view, this is what we need. This is what one does need to become an agent, a license and pass an exam. Tell me some thoughts about you. What is your vision? What will be your vision?
Hello, guys. James, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a long answer, but I believe that you've covered quite clearly of what change needs to be made. My only question at the start will be just going back to basics, actually, is what actually the agent is, because my understanding at the moment, if you want to become a coach, which I want to become a coach, and you have a process that you have to go through it, there is a specific requirements to become a coach. You have to go through the B license, you have to go to A, you have to go to Pro if you want to manage in a higher level. If you want to be a lawyer, there's certain educational degree you have to have. But my understanding at the moment with the agent is a small fee and to declare that you're a good person. I mean, this is the right description for an agent. One of the biggest industries in the world. We can go back to numbers and percentages that agents make. Did that make you qualified to become an agent? I have my personal friends who don't know anything about agency, and they set up an agency. Are they the right people to look after players' interests and players' careers? I don't think so. So the requirements has to be much stronger. And as much as we talk about it, as much as we want to make a change, we won't make a change if we don't have the basics right. If I want to be a coach, there's certain way that you have to educate yourself, there's certain things that you have to have. But as an agent, what you have is you have to pay a little fee and just say, I'm a good person. I don't think that's the right way. And as much as we want to make the regulation right, if we don't make the basics right, they will never succeed. So somebody to become an agent, it's also asking the players to understand is what kind of agents do you need? How do you do your due diligence of who you're going to working with? Do you interview? Because it's a process. A lot of the players don't understand one thing. They don't work for the agents. The agents work for the players. So it's like an interview process. It's, if you go for the job, it's about, do you fit the requirements? Do you fit the right, the organization, the structure, the profile of the club? The same as a player. Do they know how to choose the right agents? Or how everybody adjusts to it is you go from mouth to mouth, or who can get you the best deal. This is where it's not just the agent's problem, it's not just the governing body's problem, but also the players' education as well. So for me, I believe that you do have to set up exams, you do have to make them qualify and understand the real role of an agent.
Thank you very much. Jeremy, I imagine that you had also some experiences directly when you were a player with agents. Now you are vice president of FIFPro. How do you look from the FIFA point of view? We have here a clear statement that goes in the same direction in a way. FIFA, James, saying we will introduce the licensing again. Stilian underscoring how important it is to have good people, but also trained people, qualified people. What is FIFPro view on this?
Thank you for that question, and also thank you to invite me on this program. First of all, before I give my answer, let me put things into the perspective. Football industry, the footballers are the main product. From the footballer perspective, it is important to work with a good agent. What I mean, good agent? Agents who are well educated, agents who are well qualified with a good integrity, because those have a big role to play into this industry. Can you imagine that a footballer who have to perform well on the pitch should not be there to look after his proper affair? It should be the role of the agent. So what we have realized today is that on that job, we found a lot of agents who are not doing their jobs, which is not good for the player, for the career of the youth player. We have found young players, minor, receiving pressure from some agent, and they lose their career. So I think it is important for FIFA to regulate, to bring some proper regulation on that job. Otherwise, everybody can do that job, and the consequences, most of young footballers would not realize their dreams. Their dreams is to play football and to become great footballers. So that is at the beginning what I can say as an introduction.
Thank you very much. So James, yes, Stilian first. Stilian, you go first.
I totally agree with Jeremy about the regulation and the players suffering from a bad agent decision and not qualified agents. I mean, we can give the prior example of in the last couple cases of Kevin De Bruyne. James, you know, very, very clear about his relationship with his agent. He lost the trust of his agent. He negotiated his own contract because he don't trust the industry. He just don't trust the governing bodies that they are giving the exact and the help of the players by having the right agents. We can talk about Raheem Sterling come out on the papers a couple of days ago that he's going to start his own agency because he don't trust agents. I have a lot of friends, current players, who actually started negotiating their deals because they suffered from the agents' decisions. It's not that you have a good or bad agents. That's where the problem is. It's about the education and mentoring, working together. Do we work together? I don't think so. It's a very selfish business. And that's the way it goes. Can you blame the agents? No. They're there because they want to make the money. They want to get the best deals that they can. Do they really understand how the player's mind work? I don't think so. That's why education is not just about the law. You working with the human beings. You taking players' lives, not just their lives, their family lives in your hands. Psychologically, are you prepared to help them? Psychologically, are you prepared to take them to where they want to be? And this is the biggest issue. Sometimes it's not the rules. The rules will follow if they're educated and they know their responsibilities. At the moment, do the agents know their responsibilities? I'm not sure. Do we have clarified roles for agents? We don't. Can we clear that to it? We have to, because this is the basics. And if you don't have the strong basics, you'll never succeed. Doesn't matter what you change up at the top.
Michele, if I may.
Yes, of course. I think you should not be unhappy of what you just heard. Your regulatory power is requested, so it's fantastic for FIFA, no?
No, look, and it's really, I think it's really interesting, obviously, as always, as part of our consultation, we obviously hear from FIFA Pro, but hearing from two former players and also, of course, one person who works, well, two people who work directly with players as well, you know, post a playing career. You know, I think the comments are indicative of the research which went into where the framework and the world of the football transfer system is after FIFA deregulated, and then there's a void created. There was a void created by that deregulation. I mean, the overall objective today of our re-regulation of the occupation of agent is to raise professional and ethical standards of the occupation itself, and to protect particularly those players that have short careers and the principle of contractual stability within the football transfer system. I've said this before in a couple of other conferences. Our view is that the concept of an agent in football is no different to the concept of an agent in any other walk of life. Michele, you're a lawyer. When you are acting on behalf of a client, you're an agent to that client. No different to an accountant who's an agent to their client, or a financial planner, even a real estate agent. Sometimes, in some cases, people might delegate authority to doctors. They're the agent of that person, etc., etc. And in all of those cases, to enter those occupations, as Stilian correctly identified, there's a minimum education barrier. That's the first point. There's some kind of education that person needs to undertake. Secondly, there's ongoing education. So it's not just you get the qualification this year and then you're working in that job for the rest of your life. You have to qualify each year or every couple of years by meeting continuing professional development requirements. So you keep up to date with your industry and you keep up to date with the changes in the industry so you can best advise your clients. But first and foremost, the concept of FIFA regulation, like I said, going back to raising professional ethical standards, is to put that client-agent relationship at the heart of the regulation. So when you are an agent, by definition at law in basically every jurisdiction, is when you are acting on someone's behalf, you have a fiduciary duty, a duty of loyalty to act in the best interests of that client, whether that client is a player, coach, club, association, whoever is hiring you to act on their behalf in a transaction. And sometimes, as our research has shown, and certainly not all agents, I don't want to tarnish a whole industry with a brush, but in some cases, you know, limited cases, there are cases where the amounts of money that are available, that are on the table, will blur that duty of loyalty, that fiduciary duty between a client and an agent, and may cause practices which FIFA calls abusive or excessive. And other elements that we need to look at, in that context as well, are what we call disproportionate market power. So where an agent may potentially actually be the individual that controls the transfer itself, where a player might ultimately sign if a player decides to terminate a contract or not. And other concepts such as solidarity in the game. So as we've said in many different press releases, one of the core objectives of the football transfer system is the solidarity between the professional and the grassroots level. So training clubs that produce players should be rewarded for the training efforts that they put in to ensure that we have those professionals at the top that are generating the big media rights, gathering all of our attention, every Saturday or Sunday when they play in football games. And there is a distortion there where that solidarity, when you compare the amounts that are paid to football agents versus the amounts that are paid to training clubs on an annual basis, and these are available in the publicly available FIFA reports on our website, the disparity is enormous. So there are certain things, which underpinned why FIFA sought to re-regulate the industry. But the primary one, like I mentioned at the top, and I think it aligns perfectly with what Stilian and Jeremy have talked about, is to raise those minimum professional and ethical standards. Not even to raise them, but to put them into place. And then after they're put into place, there needs to be an exam, ongoing education, and ongoing standards throughout the life of someone who acts on someone's behalf, much like every other industry where you have someone who is acting on someone's behalf. And as Stilian said, particularly at the top end of the game, we're not talking about small amounts of money. These are life-changing decisions for players. And if they are poorly advised, then again, that is a life-changing, career-threatening potential decision. So putting those standards in actually protects the industry, because it hopefully, and our objective and goal is that what it creates is a pool of agents who have met those minimum professional and ethical standards and have the ongoing education requirements or the ongoing education knowledge, which allows for better advice, more ethical advice to be given to all of those clients, whether players, coaches, clubs, that are using agents in the football transfer system.
Yes, Stilian, I give you, thank you, James. I give you the word to you, Stilian, and also please approach the following question. Okay, I think we are all in agreement that agents are important and therefore they must be good, they must be well educated, like Jeremy said, there must be a continuous education, but agents are not working only for the players. Agents are also working for the clubs. And is this another animal, the agent that works for the clubs? And second question, you may want to comment, and Jeremy can comment also afterwards. I was reading that one of the principles, apparently, of the new rules will be that the agent can represent the player and the new club at the same time against the old club. Do you think this is to be a good thing, or is something that goes against the interest of both the club and the player? So, Stilian, a lot of meat on the barbecue for you.
Michele, are you looking at my notes? Are you somewhere around me? I'm looking around, but you're far from me. There's three points I just want to make, and two of the points are from James' answer regarding about the right advice. What is the right advice? How did the players find the right advice from the agents? And this is a problem for me. And I always believe that I have to link up with your own stories, with your own troubles. What I can say that every single suggestion or advice or introducement to a financial person or somebody that I have to use from an agent created a big problem for me through my career and after my career. And the reason of that is not just because they had a bad will or they didn't want to help, they just didn't have the knowledge and the right approach to the right people for me to use. which it goes back to that education. And this is all you do as exam is actually what is required to be an agent. Can you guide a player to a financial advisor? I mean, I was guided to 2 financial advisors. The 2 created a big problem for me. Can I blame my agent? I have to. But maybe he didn't have the qualification to do those kind of introduction or to give me that kind of advice. And this is where the problem stands. It's not just the financial education, it's everything else. Because like I mentioned earlier, it's about the player's pathway and the player's development. This is the important bit. The second one, Michele, you mentioned as well, conflict of interest. A lot of agents work with coaches and with the club. Should that be allowed? I don't think so. I've been in that kind of situation. The government authority should be more strict and take better action. They have to. Do have to be a stronger punishment? You have to, but you have to be put in action. It's only words. What we're hearing is about words, and we all know it's happening. As a former players and the current players, we can see that now we are standing, we have a voice, we want to make a change, we want to do it in the right way. So let's do it. But without doing it together in the right way, we'll never succeed.
Thank you very much. Jeremy, in 2019, I give you the word, and with this additional food for thought, 2019, official fees paid to agents internationally, $650 million US. I don't want to know the amount of money that is not part of that official amount. Do you think that this new idea of reintroduce a fixed cap of a maximum fee will be beneficial for the agents, for the players, for the industry? Or do you think that at the end it was better the old times when your father, your uncle were your agents?
No, I'm laughing already. No, to be honest, first of all, I think we have to put things again, like I said at the beginning. Agents, they have a key roles to play on these games. That's why it is important to set up the rules. The agents, I think the FIFA, I'm talking to James now, the FIFA should set up the rules, because when you see today an agent come out talking, representing his player, he have a mandate, but on that other hand, he also represents the clubs. When he goes to talks, he will not defend the interest of his client. He will defend his proper interest. First of all, this is life, because he want to make money. Like we just mentioned, the number, the amount that they have been paying last in 2019. This is a lot of money. I think we have to set up the rules so that there's not conflict of interest. An agent should have one client, so that he will defend the interest of the client, proper interest of the client. Because imagine if I'm an agent, I represent my players, I think I'm going to fight for his own interest. Let's say if my player asks me, I want to earn this amount per month, I will try to fight for that. But in case that the agent represent both clubs and players, he will first think about what the clubs give to him. And also it is important to put a cap, because what we have realized out there, that most of the times some player, they will not move clubs because the agent doesn't have anything to gain from their transfer. That's why it is important we set up a cap. From if there's a new transfer, we put in this cap. If maybe the player will how do you say that, will extend his contract, we set up a fee. And then every agent should know how much he will earn. I think it is a key. That is the key. Because now, when you see today, you talk about agent or intermediary. Everybody come into the games. That's why I think most of them, they are not doing their job, their proper job, because there's a lot of people out there talking like agent or intermediary. So that is important that FIFA set up some rules that we will know who's agent or not. Otherwise, everybody will come into this game and then the money from the industry of football will go away. This is my point.
Thank you, Jeremy. Stilian, I see you raise the hand. Not to
just
disagree, I imagine.
Oh, no, disagree. I just love the passion from Jeremy and James. I mean, we've both been through it as a players. We know the struggle. We know the highs and the lows, and we know there's a good agents out there. And what I wanted to just say quickly about, you mentioned about me involving player for player. This is something that we're trying to do, to mentoring players in the right way. It's very important for player to understand, and to player and agent to understand the alignment between their values. You can have a player who have a different values in life, in football, to work with somebody who thinks in a completely different way. And this is how things don't work. It's about having the right representative. Who is going to look after your interest? How will you be able to succeed in your journey? Is he wants to be part of your journey? How much do you know about him? Have you done the due diligence of who he is, what he stands for, what he's going to bring to you and your family? Because he becomes part of your life. Players don't look at it that way. I wasn't looking at it that way. I had to learn about it. I had to educate myself. I have to speak with people. And when I see Jeremy talking about with such a passion, it puts a smile on my face. And only people with such a passion and action will make a difference. Which makes me even smile even better.
Very good. Well, I always say a lawyer has the clients that he deserves or she deserves, and probably you can translate the sentence also with agents. I'm not sure whether the sentence is valid, also vice versa, whether the player have the agents that they deserve, but this is another question. James, you were listening to our two friends, and it's clear conflict of interest is an issue. Every agent shall have maximum one client. Why, if I may ask, FIFA is considering to be a little bit more flexible and give some possibility for an agent under certain circumstances to represent both the new club and the player?
Yeah, thanks, Michele. It's a good question. And it's one of the principles that the FIFA Council adopted in 2019 in Shanghai, when they set up the principles governing the re-regulation of the agent occupation. So just to give some context, to those listening and who may not exactly know what you're talking about. So in any, we call them transfer or transaction in the football transfer system, if we're talking about a player or even talking about a coach, potentially, obviously the player or the coach may be registered or have a contract with what we'd call the former club on one side, or the releasing club, and then they're signing with a new club or engaging club on that side. So there are effectively three parties you can represent in the transaction: the client in the middle, who is the player or the coach; the client who is releasing the player or the coach; or the client who is the club that is engaging the player or the coach. So the principle that's been adopted by the FIFA Council is that multiple representation within a transaction is strictly prohibited, with one exception, and that one exception is that an agent is permitted to represent the client in the middle, so the player or the coach, and the engaging entity on the side of that transaction. Particularly with respect to, well, there's a couple of points to justify that and to describe that. But particularly with respect to conflicts of interest, it's obvious to everyone that an agent should not be representing all three parties within that transaction. The reason why this very limited dual representation is allowed is because the way that the cap on commission has been established in the principles as well, the interests of the agent and the interests of the parties, so the engaging club and the athlete or the coach in the middle, they're aligned, because the commission itself the fee that the agent earns is based, or the commission as it is based on the salary of the individual that is signing with the new club. So in that respect, it's in the best interests of it's best interest of the player to get a high salary, and in the case of a transfer for a football player, which may involve transfer compensation, it's in the best interest of the new club for that transfer fee to be as low as possible, because in that respect, whatever may be saved there could potentially align to the salary that's paid to the player, and in that respect, the agent is able to earn a bigger fee from representing both parties, because his interest is also aligned to that particular payment. Why that's important in this respect, however, is the FIFA regulations are seeking to introduce a user pays model, and we know from the reality of the football transfer system that's not what happens. But the user pays model is as it sounds. If a player has retained an agent to act as their representative, or a club has retained an agent to act as their representative, and there is a fee that's agreed to be paid by the client to the agent, then that client themselves has to pay that fee. So in that respect, if a player has retained an agent, it's the player's obligation to pay their agent, not the club's obligation to pay the agent. And similarly, if the club has retained the agent, it's the club's obligation to pay the agent and not the player's obligation in that respect. So when dual representation occurs, and an agent may potentially receive a commission fee from both the player and the engaging club, regardless of what is agreed, and as we all know from the publicly announced documentation and limits that have been stated by FIFA, that would be 3% of the remuneration of the client, the athlete. If that 6% on both sides is agreed, the athlete still needs to pay that 3%, and the engaging club still needs to pay that 3%, despite that 6% deriving from a calculation on the athlete's salary. When it comes to the releasing club, sorry, Michele, but just quickly, the releasing club, the interests of the releasing club don't align with the player or the engaging club. So in that respect, an agent that represents a releasing club in a transaction is only permitted to represent the releasing club in that respect. So there's a difference in the interests in the transaction as to the interests aligning between those two parties and that one party. And we believe that mitigates the conflicts in that respect.
Very clear, very clear. Thank you very much. We have now only 4 minutes to go. And I think the comments already in the media, in the social media, are that we should continue to speak for 4 hours because the topic is so important. Stilian, in 1 minute, what do you think about this capping of the fees? Is it right to restrict how much the agents shall earn?
This could be a problem. This could be a problem because I think that we can see payments behind the scenes that will be very difficult to monitor. Don't forget that a lot of agents will be trying to get the deal over the line. With a restriction like that, monitoring the finance and the money flow will be even more difficult. I would like to see for the governing bodies to come up with a better decision. It's about what value agents brings to the player and football. It's not about the deal, finding the right club and finding the right solution for the players. This is the important bit. And if they manage to control that and for agents to understand, I think will be less and less wage caps or agent cap deals, because then they will feel supported. At the moment, it's a war between players, agents, and governing bodies. There's no understanding.
Thank you very much. Jeremy, your last word with my last question. In the past, I already mentioned there were many players that have the limitation or the lack to have the father representing them towards the club, or the friend, or the uncle. Now, under the new regulations, it seems this will not be possible anymore. Agents will be licensed because we said we want them to know the rules, to be educated. Do you think it is therefore good that a player will not be anymore represented by a representative, by a parent? In just 1 minute, your final view on this.
Yes, I think it's going to be a good solution, because what we just mentioned is that many people from out of football have get into the football industry. That is why it's important that FIFA should set up a proper rules from the FIFA agent or intermediary. I don't know how they're going to call it, so that they will do their proper job representing their client. And it is important, we have mentioned that those people should be well educated, good with ethic, integrity, transparency, because what we have realized is that since they have opened, I can say that since they are open, we find a lot of, sorry for the word, a lot of crew there. That's also important for the agent to be comment on dit, to be registered in the
Yes.
FIFA. FIFA should create some database where most of the player agents should be registered there, so that if they have one deal, everybody can go there and see that, okay, this is the deal have been done by this agent. So I think that's why I said it is important that FIFA put some rules out there for the agent, because it's important. A footballer is not there to dealing with the database, to deal with the things every day. He want to just go to the training and play matches. That will be important for him, to help him for his career. These people,
Yes.
I mean, agents should be there to help them to achieve what they want on their career.
Well, these are fantastic closing words. It, of course, not a final conclusion. There's still a lot of work to do. I thank all of very much our three guests. It was indeed too short to address all issues. For sure, we know that agents play a key role, as Jeremy said. We have to make sure that this role is played well, as all of you played a fantastic role on the pitch and are playing now on another pitch a great role. I thank your organization for giving us these 45 minutes to address this important topic. I wish to all our three speakers, but even more to all people attending from home and listening to us, to stay healthy, stay strong. See you soon on or around a pitch. And with this, I can only inform that Pedro Pinto, our good friend, will make in a few moments the closing. Thank you very much. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.